Most people don't have a Bible problem, they have a structure problem. They read scripture like it's a pile of parts, a story here, a law there, a prophecy somewhere else, Yahusha in one corner, Revelation at the end like some wild mystery book that nobody can really explain. So, what happens? The whole thing feels fragmented. Genesis feels disconnected from Leviticus. Leviticus feels disconnected from the prophets. The prophets feel disconnected from Yahusha. And Revelation feels disconnected from everything. And that's why so much teaching feels unstable. It may sound passionate, deep, or spiritual, but it still drifts because it has no architecture holding it together. So, what I'm going to show you is simple. I'm going to give you a real example um, here in just a minute because scripture isn't random. It's not just religious anthology, it's not a loose collection of themes. It runs on a covenant operating system, and that system has 7 interlocking layers. The temple pattern governs sacred space. The Modim cycle governs sacred time. The Sinai covenant lawsuit governs legal accountability. The Eden story arc governs the direction of the story. The Jubilee release pattern governs restoration. Pulse mathematics governs measurement under pressure. And the Yahusha Codex axis govern how meaning is classified and interpreted. That means the Bible isn't just telling stories, it's running a system. And once you see that system, the whole text tightens. Prophecy stops looking chaotic. The feast stops looking optional. Judgment stops looking random. Restoration stops looking sentimental, and Yahusha stops looking detached from Torah and the prophets. Now, let me make this even simpler. The temple tells you where you are. The Modim tell you when you are. Sinai tells you what legal stage you're in. Eden tells you where the story is moving. Jubilee tells you how release and restoration work. Pulse tells you what is being measured. And the axis tell you how Yahusha interprets the whole thing. That's the system. Now, let me show you how this works with one example. Let's take Exodus 12. Most people know Exodus 12 as the Passover chapter. The lamb, the blood, the meal, the Exodus. Fine, that's true. But that's still too small. Because Exodus 12 isn't just a story, it's a full covenant sequence running through all 7 layers at once. So let's walk it. Layer 1, the temple pattern. The temple layer governs sacred space, access, boundary, approach, and guarded presence. And in Exodus 12, that layer is already there before a tabernacle is ever built. Why? Because the blood isn't applied randomly, it's applied to the doorway, the doorpost, the lintel, the threshold, and that matters. The house becomes a marked covenant zone. Inside the boundary, life. Outside the boundary, judgment. So the doorway becomes the legal line between safety and death. That's temple logic in seed form. This isn't yet the outer court, holy place, and most holy in built form, but the architecture is already there. You have boundary, entry, marking, protected space, and guarded life. So Exodus 12 is already teaching sacred space order. Layer 2, the Modim cycle. The Modim layer governs sacred time, the appointed sequence of deliverance, purification, restoration, instruction, warning, judgment, and dwelling. Exodus 12 is one of the heaviest Modim texts in Torah. Why? Because Yahuwah says, "This month shall be the head of your months, or of months for you." That's not just calendar trivia, it means sacred time is being reset. Life is now counted from redemption, not from bondage, and covenant time begins with deliverance. Then Passover is fixed to the appointed day. Then unleavened bread follows. So the sequence is already visible. Passover equals blood deliverance. Unleavened bread equals corruption, purge, and separation from the old order. That's exactly how the Modim cycle works. The timing isn't loose, it's set, because Scripture runs on appointed time. Layer 3, Sinai Covenant Lawsuit. The Sinai layer governs legal progression. Breach, warning, escalation, exile or destruction, and restoration. Now, somebody might say, but Sinai comes after Exodus 12. Yes, as formal covenant code, but the lawsuit logic is already active here in seed form. Egypt isn't just having a tragic night, Egypt is under judgment. Yahuwah says he will execute judgments against Egypt and against its gods. That's legal language, not vague spirituality, not emotional drama, but judgment. So Exodus 12 isn't just rescue, it's also prosecution and verdict. A rival order is being judged, a false system is being struck, a sequence is being executed. And that's why this matters so much, because the Exodus isn't merely God being nice to Israel, it's Yahuwah entering enemy territory, exposing a corrupt order, and executing judgment while distinguishing his people from it. That's lawsuit logic. Layer 4, Eden story arc. The Eden layer governs the story direction. You have garden, rebellion, exile, guarded access, restored presence. So where does Exodus 12 fit? It fits in the movement from exile toward restoration. Why? Because Eden is the original place of life under Yahuwah's order. Then rebellion leads to fracture, loss, and expulsion, and the rest of Scripture is the long story of how that fractured condition gets answered. In Exodus 12, Israel is living inside bondage under a hostile order outside covenant rest. So this chapter is part of the return movement. It's not full restoration yet, but it's a decisive break from captivity. Exodus 12 says, you're not staying in Egypt, you're being brought out. That's Eden direction. Movement away from bondage and toward covenant order, inheritance, and restored life under Yahuwah. So the chapter isn't just about rescue from oppression, it's part of the larger exile to return arc. Layer 5, the Jubilee release pattern. The Jubilee layer governs return, release, and reset. 49 as cycle closure, 50 as release frame. Now, Does Exodus 12 mention Jubilee directly? No, but the logic is there. Because what's happening? Captives are being released. A people held under oppression are being brought out. A false master is losing claim over them. And the story is moving toward land, inheritance, and covenant order. That's Jubilee direction. Release is happening. A people are being separated from a system that held them. And Egypt isn't just losing labor, it's losing claim. That's huge because Jubilee isn't vague freedom language, it's rightful release back into covenant order. That's exactly what the Exodus begins. So even here, before Leviticus 25 formalizes Jubilee law, the release pattern is already visible. Layer 6, pulse mathematics. Pulse isn't prediction and it's not mysticism. It's covenant measurement under pressure. Now, look at Exodus 12. Passover lands on the 14th day, and in the architecture, Pulse 14 is threshold, turning, repaired loyalty, and covenant crossing. So Exodus 12 is a threshold chapter. Life and death are separated. Marked and unmarked are separated. Inside and outside are separated. Bondage and release are separated. So the chapter is literally measuring who responds rightly at the threshold. Then you also have the 7-day unleavened bread. And in the architecture, 7 carries holiness, creation order, purification, and the completion of a cleansing cycle. So again, that fits here cleanly. Because the chapter doesn't stop at blood, it moves into purge. What will be removed? What old corruption will be carried forward? What must now be cleansed after deliverance? So pulse here isn't random number fascination. Pulse 14 governs the threshold crossing, and the 7-day unleavened bread span shows the completion of the cleansing cycle that follows deliverance. Layer 7, the Yahusha Codex axis. The axis classify meaning and force one primary interpretive axis per unit. Now, in Exodus 12, several axes are clearly active. Axis 2, Torah as a standard, because the chapter is full of precise command. Take the lamb, guard it, kill it at the appointed time. Apply the blood exactly where commanded. Don't leave the house. Remove the leaven. Keep this as a statute. So this is not do what feels meaningful. It's commanded covenant order. Axis 5, covenant loyalty. Because obedience under pressure is the dividing line. The people survive by aligned response, not by vague belief, not by emotional security, but by doing what Yahuwah commanded. Axis 10, judgment, Gehenna, end of age, because the chapter is explicitly about divine judgment breaking into a corrupt land. Axis 12 is present as well. Discipleship, bearing the stake, and remnant, because marked identity, household transmission, and generational remembrance are all built in. Now, if I had to lock one primary axis for the heart of the chapter, I would call it Axis 5, covenant loyalty, because the core issue is obedience under pressure at the threshold. But the point is this: the architecture doesn't flatten the chapter, it clarifies it. Now, look at what just happened. One chapter, 7 layers. Temple is threshold, boundary, and marked house. Modim, sacred time, reset, and deliverance, purge sequence. Sinai, judgment and legal distinction. Eden, movement out of bondage toward restored order. Jubilee, release from false mastery. Pulse, threshold crossing and completion of cleansing. Axis, commanded obedience, judgment, and remnant identity. That's what the Course teaches you how to see. And once you see it, the Bible stops reading like disconnected material. It starts reading like one integrated covenant engine. So that's what the architecture is. Not that they're just some cool themes or interesting symbols, or that prophecy is just exciting, but that Scripture operates through a repeatable architecture from Genesis to Revelation. And that changes everything. It means the text is constrained. It means not every interpretation survives. It means prophecy isn't free-floating symbolism. It means revelation isn't chaos. It means Yahusha's words aren't detached from Torah. It means covenant order is still governing the whole story. And that's why I built the course that I did. It's for people who know something is off with modern Bible teaching, and for people who are tired of fragmented doctrine, headline prophecy, surface symbolism, church tradition overriding structure, and teachers who can quote verses but can't explain how the whole system works. The course gives you the architecture. It teaches you the layers. It teaches how they interlock. It teaches how to read with constraint instead of drift. And it teaches how Yahusha stands at the center of the whole operating system as the interpretive engine and structural hinge. So if you've ever felt like there has to be more here, there has to be a structure under all this, there has to be a reason Genesis, Torah, prophets, Yahusha, and Revelation keep echoing each other, there has to be a way to explain this that isn't shallow and not insane. That's exactly what this course is for. Because once the architecture is restored, the Bible stops looking like a pile of parts. It starts looking like what it actually is, a covenant operating system. And once you see that system, you can't unsee it. And that's what this course unlocks. And you can sign up at school.com/undeniable truths.